Good morning. My name is Gabriela Coletta, and I'm the chair of the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events. I want to remind you that this is a public hearing and is being recorded and broadcasted live on Xfinity 8, RCN 82, and FiOS 964, and streamed on boston.gov/city/council/TV, and will also be rebroadcasted at a later date. Please silence your cell phones and other devices. We will ask to take public testimony, and if there's anybody in the audience, please be sure to sign up to the left over here. Anyone that would like to testify virtually on this matter, please email juan.lopez@boston.gov with your full name for the Zoom link. At the start of your testimony, please state your name, address, and affiliation. So today's docket is on docket 0118. The matter is sponsored by the mayor and referred to the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events on January 11th, 2023. I'm going to read the docket in full, just so that it is on the record. Docket 0118 is a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $297,200 in the form of a grant for the FY23 Local Cultural Council Program awarded by the Massachusetts Cultural Council to be administered by the Office of Arts and Culture. The grant will fund innovative arts, humanities, and interpretive sciences programs that enhance the quality of life in our city. I am not joined by any of my colleagues today. However, Councilor Ed Flynn sent a letter of absence that I just would like to read into the record. Dear Councilor Coletta, please be advised that I am unable to attend today's hearing on docket 0118. A hearing regarding a grant for the FY23 Local Cultural Council Program. Arts and culture are integral into elements that make our city vibrant and have positive impacts on the quality of life for our residents. I will review the tape of the hearing when it becomes available. Thank you for your leadership on this matter. Sincerely, Ed Flynn, Boston City Council President, District 2. Okay, and we have some folks from the administration here from the Office of Arts and Culture. If you'd like to introduce yourselves for the record, name, title, and affiliation, and then feel free to commence with your presentation. And we can start with Chief Ortega.
Thank you so much, Councillor. I'm Cara Elliott Ortega, Chief of Arts and Culture.
I am Kenny Mascari, Chief of Staff of the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture.
Naida Faria, Director Administration and Finance, Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture.
Okay, fantastic. Go ahead, Cara.
So I thought I would just start by giving a little bit of background on the Cultural Council program that we're looking at reviewing funding for today. So this is the annual process of accepting the Massachusetts Cultural Council allocation to Boston for Cultural Council grants. This is an annual grant that supports small nonprofit organizations and fiscally sponsored groups in Boston. It's one of the only open applications in the city for general operating support, and we see it as really the widest part of the funnel. So an entry point for all kinds of cultural organizations to receive small grants that can support their work. I definitely see it as a sign of success that 27% of this year's grantees are first-time applicants, and we continue to update the application and communications process every year to make these funds as accessible as possible. This is also a reflection of our values as a city, as well as the values of the Boston Cultural Council, with the vision of a vibrant and creative Boston where everyone can access and participate in art and where opportunities for creative expression are available to everyone. The Boston Cultural Council is a city commission staffed by the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. So while the Arts Office has a set of grants, programs, workshops, and other support that we provide to artists and creative businesses and nonprofits and community members, it's really the Boston Cultural Council that oversees this grant in particular that we're talking about today, which is the only annual grant for nonprofit organizations. Funds for the BCC come from the Mass Cultural Council, which is a state agency, and is also supported by a match from the City of Boston, which comes through the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture operating budget. Just a quick review of the nuts and bolts of the program. Organizations with annual budgets of under $2 million are eligible for grants of up to $5,000. Nonprofits and fiscally sponsored groups are eligible to apply. We fund applications that do a wide variety of cultural work across all disciplines, including music, film and video, traditional and folk art, visual art, theater, dance, humanities, literary arts, performing arts, and social civic practice, as well as multidisciplinary arts. And these are delivered through many, many different kinds of organizations and kinds of work, including creative youth development, cultural spaces, volunteer community groups, presenting organizations, festivals, and more. Applications open in the fall every year, and we support those applicants through webinars, office hours, and on-call support. Applications close in October, and we enter a pretty intense 2-month review period where we review hundreds of applications, both by the council and by Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture staff. So each application gets 2 reviews, scores are averaged. We meet for probably about 4 to 5 hours to actually talk through all of the decisions, looking at the BCC priorities and guidelines, and then a final set of recommendations that go to a BCC vote in January. And this timeline every year is dictated by the Mass Cultural Council and is a requirement of the funding that we're talking about today. So where we are in the year right now in the cycle is that we've just notified this year's applicants about grant decisions, and those grants will be publicly announced hopefully by the end of this week. This year we received a record number of applications, 255. This is a little bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that on the one hand it's a great sign that after a few years of making some intentional changes to the applications and to our communications, we keep getting more and more applicants. On the other hand, and in particular, we're getting the most applications consistently now from the smallest organizations, which is something that we were really trying to make sure we were reaching. On the other hand, it's a lot of competition for not a lot of funds. So it's just something that we're aware of and continuing to think about as we think about what changes need to be made to the program longer term. The total ask from applicants based on the grant sizes that we have dictated for the program was over $1 million, and our budget this year, which includes the funds that we're talking about today, is $547,000. The majority of applicants and the majority of the grantees, as I just mentioned, went to the smallest budget size, and we're also funding work in every neighborhood throughout the city. We also have some additional funding this year from the Red Sox Fund that we were able to allocate to organizations in Fenway or that were serving Fenway, and there's still funding in that pot as well, so we look forward to working with Councillor Bach on determining how to continue allocating those funds for Fenway cultural work. And I think with that, that's all I have, and happy to answer any questions.
So you were saying that this grant is largely for operating
Yes.
expenses, and you said something about a funnel. It's a very general criteria of what to spend this money on.
Yeah, it can be used for really up to the organization's discretion. There's some things that it can't be used for, and we outline those in the guidelines, but for the most part, it's pretty flexible. And that's also an intentional part of the program design, because we know that it's the hardest thing to do to find funding for that stuff that you just need in order to do your work every day. So there's some programmatic funding out there that's open application for specific kinds of things, specific programs, or there's a little bit of funding for public art projects in particular. But there isn't really just a place that you can go to apply for a little bit of money to pay for your other costs. So that's what we're trying to provide.
Excellent. And I do appreciate that approach, especially for the smaller organizations. And I love the fact that you tiered it up, right, for the smaller organizations with budgets less than $100,000. I'm sure this will go a long way for them. I'm curious about the selection process. You said that you have grantees in every single neighborhood. Is there a framework in which you look at these applications, and are you considering if they're minority-owned, women-owned, and just basically their work in general in the community?
Yeah, we have made rounds of updates to the application questions every year, and we did an equity kind of audit of the process a couple of years ago, and added questions specifically to get at, how are you serving the communities that you say you're serving? How is that reflected in the makeup of the organization, including like staff and leadership? How are you thinking about access, including serving people of all abilities? So we have some questions in there to try to understand how the organizations are positioning themselves in their work through an equity lens. We don't ask for specific demographics at this point, and some of that is just the grant size is pretty small, and so we're trying to balance like asking the right amount of information with not kind of creating a really burdensome application. And we do ask if there are specific communities that they're serving. think something that we'd like to get better at is understanding the geographies, because just because an organization is in a specific neighborhood doesn't mean that they're just serving that neighborhood, or there's some organizations that are serving citywide. So we have asked in the past to try to get a sense of like what community are you really impacting, and it's just like hard to kind of capture that all the time. So I think that might be something that we want to do this year, is to like go back through the applications and do a little bit more of an analysis of like really which are the communities that are being served. But we have asked that in different ways over the years.
That's great. And that's where I was going
Yeah.
with all of this. Do you do an equity audit? Like, what does that look like? Getting the demographic data was something I was going to encourage. So
Yeah.
if there's an opportunity to do that, I know it's onerous, and these organizations are already doing amazing work with what little time they have, but capturing that demographic data just so we could look at it.
Yeah.
Are we doing what we say we're going to do in terms of funding the arts in an equitable way in the city for all populations and demographics?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. We've talked about it a little bit too, as it's something that we could do through a study after the grant. So, there's ways to embed it in the application, but also we can go back and look at the grantees and kind of follow up and do some survey work to understand that as well, in case some of the organizations also might not be able to like readily provide some of that information. And then through the ARPA grant that we're doing right now, for that we are collecting demographics, and that's the first time that we've done that. So it'll be an interesting kind of pilot, and we can see if it's possible to expand it to other grants too.
That's great. And then obviously disaggregating, certain ethnic groups and all of that, making sure that we're going census and beyond, because the census also had its issues with the AAPI community and Latin and Central American populations as well. The other just last two questions that I have is about reporting. What do these organizations have to do to come back to you and let you know how they're using this money and who sees that? And then also outreach. Like, how did you get this message out there? How can we be helpful as a council to assist you in this work and trying to get organizations to even know that this money is here? Yeah,
so for reporting, we follow up with some pretty high-level questions just about how the work has gone, because these aren't programmatic grants. We don't ask a lot of program breakdown, but we have, and with COVID, we tried to keep the reporting a little bit lighter, kind of coming out of the pandemic, to not be too burdensome. But we ask questions about how the money was used, anything unexpected that's going on for the organization. And I think that's where, if we wanted to add more kind of reporting specifically to who was served, that would be the place to do it, would be in the follow-up report. So that's something that we're thinking about this year. I don't know, Nida, is there anything else in the reporting that would be helpful to highlight? No. Okay. Communications. So this year, we've tried, every year we try some different things to see how they work. We've tried having print ads on the T. We've tried having radio ads, and every single year we also do ask a question in the application about how did you find out about this application, and the biggest category is always word of mouth, no matter what we seem to do. Yep. But we do translate the advertisements. We post them on all of our social media. We get them out in newsletters. We also have a list of organizations that we go to help us get the word out to people they work with. So trying to go through some community-based organizations that way to make sure we're reaching folks who might not be hearing from, an arts office. And it seems to be working well in the sense that we keep getting a lot of first-time applicants who don't know us from other work. So I think that that's going well. It tends to be around 25% every year who are new. And that's always exciting, and we're always learning about new organizations. I think it would be great for us to coordinate more with the council and make sure that you all know when that's open and how to get that out to your constituents. And it would be great to brainstorm on that for next year. We're always having this hearing once we've already gone through the timing of the cycle, because that's when the funding comes in. Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of make a point to do it probably in the summer and make sure we're on schedule to work with you to get the word out.
That's great. And we do follow the Office of Arts and Culture on social media. We try our best to push it out as best as we can in our newsletter and on our networks as well. So just let us know how we can be helpful in that regard. I did have a question, and now of course I'm forgetting it. I think that's it on my end. I'm happy to see that there are, oh, actually, I do have what I was going to say to you. So the fact that we now have this treasure trove of applicants, so 250-ish, are we actively engaging them and providing more opportunities to them for money, especially for those that didn't get this grant round or this amount of, or this pot of money?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every year there's a certain number of applicants who are a better fit for maybe another opportunity. So when we reopen our grant for individual artists, that's often a way that a lot of those groups can get their work done if they didn't receive a Boston Cultural Council grant. Mm-hmm. So we have, I think, 2 applications, maybe 3 actually, that will be opening before the end of this fiscal year, and we'll make sure that everybody who applied to the BCC is aware of those and understands, especially if those are maybe a better fit than this grant in particular.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think that's it on my end. Is there anything else that you all want to just mention?
Anything else? No?
Okay.
I think we're all set.
Okay, so I think moving forward, I will recommend that this come out of committee and it passes in the council in the next upcoming council meeting. And if there's any other information that you think I need to know ahead of my report, I'm happy to put it in there. But thank you all so much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.